Welcome to a ride on the outside. MMA is full of people on the inside, but what about the ones that watch from beyond? Welcome to the MMA Outsiders with Tom Albano and Zain Bando on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
Welcome everybody to episode 105 of the MMA Outsiders. That's Zain Bando. I'm Tom Albano, and Zain, the big weekend of November is finally upon us. This weekend is a loaded weekend between UFC 309 and a certain boxing match that's going to take place on Friday. And Zain, there's plenty of commonalities actually between these two, because these are two fights, the main event for 309 and the main event for the boxing card on Friday, that there are plenty of people that don't want to see either of those fights happen, but nevertheless, they are going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to happen and then some. And yeah, I mean, I guess the weekend is here that we've been waiting for, because after this weekend, things really start to slow down, which is kind of a good thing. Nothing really ramps back up until the early to middle portion of December. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about these two specific cards with you tonight, as well as some other news and notes items that we weren't able to get to because we didn't have a show last week. We decided to take last week off, so it'll be nice to get back into a little group.
All right. Yep, absolutely. Make sure you hit that like button, by the way, before we get into anything. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Make sure to follow us across social media at MMA Outsiders ETB on Twitter, X, Instagram, and TikTok, and do the same for the ETB Network at ETB Network, Twitter, X, Instagram, and TikTok. And shout out to our friends. Before I do the little sponsor thing, make sure you listen to this show wherever you get your podcasts: Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, so much more. If you are listening on those fronts, the audio version, then we encourage you to come over to the YouTube version, youtube.com/ETB Network, for more, to view the video end and to subscribe and help us get to our goal of 900 and eventually 1,000 subscribers. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, the MMA Outsiders, and everything else here at the network is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. If you are watching this at premiere time, it was actually a little earlier today that Zain and I finished up. When I say today, I mean Tuesday the 12th, that Zain and I finished up our edition of Fight Study. We had to do it early this week due to some network commitments and network scheduling changes. So it is there for you to view at playback.tv/ETB Network in the replay. So feel free to check that out. The previous night, on the night of the 11th, Nick Morganson and a couple of guys did an NBA whip around for the 5 games that took place on Veterans Day. We'll have more NBA streams coming your way very soon, with the NBA Cup officially underway starting tonight. So yeah, check out playback.tv/ETB Network for more of a live stream schedule. All right, let's get right into it. UFC 309 is here, and this is the weekend that a lot of fans on the Twitter sphere have been loathing. This is a lot of fans, meanwhile, still on the Twitter sphere, and the other half of them, and UFC CEO Dana White, Hunter Campbell, etc., have been really looking forward to. And that is the return of one John Bones Jones. After just under 2 years away from the octagon, it's his first fight since winning the heavyweight championship, defeating Cyril Gane at UFC 285. And he makes a defense, the GOAT himself, taking on the heavyweight GOAT, Stipe Miocic, who has accomplished so much at the heavyweight scene when he was king of the division between 2016 and 2021. This is actually going to be Miocic's first fight in the octagon since his UFC 260 title loss to Francis Ngannou, who obviously is not with the UFC anymore. I think we mentioned it several weeks ago, Zan. There is nobody on the current active UFC roster anymore that Stipe Miocic holds a win against, or I think has even competed against. So it's very weird to say, because I don't want to say a bygone era, because Jon Jones, is the GOAT. We've talked about this.
Right.
Dana White says all the time that he is the GOAT. We don't necessarily agree on the pound for pound rankings, but nevertheless, Jon Jones is one of the greatest fighters, if not the greatest fighter ever. And he is taking on Stipe Miocic. Like I said, ruled the division for about 5 years or so. So it feels weird that this fight is taking place now. This fight was supposed to take place in last year's MSG event, but Jon Jones ends up tearing his pec, and that's how we got Tom Aspinall inserted down to the heavyweight title chaotic picture. Nevertheless, this fight is happening. And Zan, are you excited about this fight?
And would I be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bit? Yeah, I am excited for it. I mean, anytime you get a chance to see Jon Jones fight, it's a spectacle. I can say I've watched every single Jon Jones fight live since he's been a champion. But that's pretty cool to say that I've watched his entire career from the very beginning. So this is just another chapter of the story. And Stipe Miocic is the ultimate underdog in many ways. Beat Fabricio Verdum, was several years ago, and nobody thought he had a chance to do that. Defeated the likes of Alistair Overeem, beat Junior Dos Santos. I mean, when you look at his entire UFC heavyweight title run, it's just like, okay, how would he do against a guy of this skill set? Or how would he do against a wrestler? Or how would he do against whomever? And he just seemed to never have really any troubles whatsoever. The Cormier fights were 3 of the most legendary fights in history of the division. The 2 Francis fights were a cornerstone to kind of what the modern version of the UFC heavyweight division is. I think I'm excited for the fight, but I'm not as excited for the fight as some. I'm excited about all the stuff that's already come out. I was excited to begin to sift through the countdown show. I was excited to watch all the fan made promos. I've been excited to read all the discourse on the internet of how pissed people are going into this fight because of the pound for pound argument, because of who the best heavyweight in the world currently is, because of the way this fight is being portrayed. I think I'm more excited about the backstory of this fight than anything else, and I don't think I'll be truly excited for the fight until the day of the weigh-in. So,
are you excited about the aftermath for a fight?
I don't. Let me just say that I don't think I'm prepared for it yet.
Fair enough.
I don't think I'm mentally prepared for the musical chairs that's going to be taking place. That's going to have to be dissected in every way till Sunday, a week from next Tuesday, if you will.
Yeah, so, absolutely. I mean, you look at this fight, and as you mentioned, Jon Jones has fought everybody that has come in front of him. It's been domination. It's been finish. Obviously, he's had a few scares here and there, whether it be about a decade or so ago with the Gustafsson 1 fight, whether it be some of his last light heavyweight title defenses. But, Jon Jones has continued to, Jon Jones has continued to be who he is. Jon Jones has continued to be one of the greatest fighters, even into an older age. In the twilight of his career, Jon Jones just continues to get the job done. He's now moved up to heavyweight. He's won the heavyweight title, which a lot of people were hoping for. It wasn't the fight most people were hoping for, and it seems like we're never going to get that fight that people are hoping for. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago in the aftermath of Ngannou's win over in the PFL. But nevertheless, Jon Jones is still who Jon Jones is. The aura that surrounds Jon Jones is still there. And then you have Stipe Miocic. And I want to make this clear, Zan. Stipe Miocic has done some fantastic things at heavyweight. He's the only fighter to have defended the heavyweight championship 3 consecutive times. And then he did that lost the championship, and then regained the championship and ended up coming out on top in the trilogy between him and Daniel Cormier. He sat on the sidelines, waited all that stuff out with Brock Lesnar, Daniel Cormier. Were they going to fight? Ended up never happening. And now he's done that sit on the sideline strategy and he gets another championship shot. So credit to him. Like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, it does bring me a little concern when you're seeing him do it, Sean Strickland do it, Juliana Pena do it. Like, is this now going to be a norm? But that's another discussion another time. Nevertheless, Stipe Miocic is getting the title shot. And this isn't the first time that we're seeing a fighter coming off of a long layoff and getting a title shot. We just mentioned John Jones through his time moving up to heavyweight, trying to be patient and trying to build his body right. George St. Pierre.
I guess I'm going to stop you right there, though, and say that I think the biggest difference between this fight and other instances is when's the last time you've seen a guy come off a long layoff and a loss and get a title shot off that in that literal scenario? Because I think there are very few names, if any, you could lay claim to that distinction.
Well, I was going to throw in before you interrupted me another name, Juliana Pena, who I just mentioned, getting the title shot, sitting on the sidelines and waiting, and eventually her defeating Raquel Pennington, controversy or not, to claim the bantamweight championship. You do have George St. Pierre. The difference, I will throw in a difference, and the difference is, George St. Pierre took on Michael Bisping, who was also getting up there in age, and had won the middleweight championship. And I love Michael Bisping. I love the moment that he won, but not a lot of people expected that he was going to win the middleweight championship. He had a short notice title fight.
No, he was a massive underdog. I think he was the third or second biggest underdog in UFC history at the time.
Right.
And
then his lone title defense came against Dan Henderson, who was retiring after the fight anyway, was lower ranked in the contenders. Juliana Pena, I mean, Zan, all you have to do is have a look at the UFC bantamweight division, women's bantamweight division, and tell me anything standing out there. Stipe Miocic is going up against, people are tired of Dana White saying that's a meme, but again, talking about pound for pound versus GOAT being two different things, going up against the GOAT or one of the GOATs in MMA. That's a big difference. And I don't know if a long layoff like Stipe Miocic has had is going to do him any solid favors in that department.
No, I certainly don't think so either. Number one and number two, I think what makes the situation even worse is, you want to talk about inactivity, you want to talk about all that stuff. You could say that John Jones is inactive or has been inactive, but now you can spin the whole narrative back on Stipe because Jones beat a guy in Cyril Gane who was one of the best contenders in the division. To whereas every single guy that Stipe Miocic has beat so far in the UFC is no longer with the promotions. That's another that's another wrinkle that I think some people are failing to forget. Is it's not like Stipe decided, I'm going to sit on the sidelines for a year and see how the division plays out. He sat on the sidelines now for over 3.5 years. So I think just looking at the situation that he's walking into, he's walking into a UFC that was very different, just holistically, not just as a promotion, but MMA is a sport in general than it was when he was champion. So I think there are more interesting layers surrounding this fight than what people realize, because you can't just look at it stylistically. 42-year-old Stipe was different than he was 37. It's less when when John Jones was 25 and beginning his UFC light heavyweight title run. You can't look at these guys the same way that you may have 4 years ago. So when people say, this fight's an easy fight to pick, Stipe's, watch Stipe's, whatever, I don't think I'm on the side of, I don't think you take 3 years off and you come back looking like the same fighter. There's no way. I mean, you got Stipe coming out in interviews, admitting that he's still working his ass off. Quite frankly, or to still be a fighter and to still be in shape. To me, it says something. And I think that says something as well to Jones that he needs to be ready for the best version of Stipe than anybody's ever seen. So
the thing is, I'm thinking about it, and Zan, what Stipe has done, the keys to his success has been number one, his wrestling ability, and number two, his power. I think the problem is he's running into John Jones, who has fought wrestling specialists, striking specialists, grappling specialists. Over the years, yeah, maybe he's only had one fight at heavyweight, but over the years, John Jones has seen it all. He has worked with some of the best at his camp in Albuquerque. He has worked with some of the best inside the cage as opposition. John Jones has seen, it's very few things that John Jones has not seen in his octagon career, inside and outside of the cage, whether as a partner or whether as an opponent. And I feel like I look at the wrestling ability of Stipe Miocic. It's fantastic, but I don't think it's anything that John Jones can't handle. I look at the power. Yeah, maybe we haven't seen John Jones hit with the power like Stipe Miocic has, but we've seen the devastation that John Jones can bring. And John Jones, Zan, I mean, we talked about how big he looked at light heavyweight. John Jones at heavyweight looks even bigger because he doesn't have to
right.
worry about the weight. He does, and the fact that he spent the time building his body. I'm wondering if Stipe Miocic is ready for John Jones's powers simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a question that I think is going to be answered very early on in the fight because as you and I both know, every fight starts on the feet. Well, I think we'll know within the first 2 minutes whether or not that question can be rightfully answered, or if it will still be a feeling out process throughout the first maybe 5 to 15 minutes of the fight. So
So
I don't think we'll really know that until we know. That's what I would say in that. And I also think, just something interesting too. We also talk about the aspect of this fight should have happened years ago. This fight should have happened however long ago. There's this narrative, there's that narrative. You know, and this may be a bit of a harsh take, but you know, in sports and in life, you're gonna get presented with products that, maybe you don't like, but some other people do like. And I think anybody saying that, this fight's a criticism or whatever the case is, well, there is always the choice that if you feel like you don't need to see this fight, you wouldn't have to, and you can keep advocating for Tom Aspinall to get the shot. I'm not saying this to be a forced upon kind of thing, but given that the UFC wants to build the star power of figuring out who the winner is between the best heavyweight of all time and the GOAT, I don't think, regardless of age or whatever you want to say about them, I don't think you can get a bigger fight than these two right now, just given the just given the legacies that are at stake.
Well, I think there is one fight that could be bigger, but I'll save that for the next part of this conversation. Right now, let's just jump into a prediction. Look, maybe it isn't an easy fight to predict given the long layoffs, given the fact that they have fought a combined one time since Stipe Miocic lost the heavyweight championship, and that fight was done by John Jones early last year. But look, until I see... I should be careful with my words, because I think if John Jones were to fight somebody like Tom Aspinall, I think Aspinall could get the job done and end the streak. But if we're talking about a legends battle, Sam, like we are here with Jones and Miocic,
Right.
also given the fact that technically we're in Jones's hometown of New York, also given that the 12-6 elbows are now legalized, I would not be surprised if John Jones started to deliver some of those in this matchup. I got to go with Jones. I think Jones gets it done within the first 2 rounds.
First 2, I'm going to go a little longer than you and say that he gets done in the 4th. I think it's a 4th round weight TKO stoppage. I think it's one of those fights where he's going to be winning the fight. And Miocic is going to hurt him briefly, I think, in round 2, but it's going to be nothing that's going to stun him per se. And I think he'll win with like 40 seconds left in the 4th. It'll be like one of those where it's like he goes upstairs 3 times, lands one to the body, and Stipe falls over and he takes like 2 more. And assuming the referee is Herb Dean, it'll force Herb Dean to stop the fight almost immediately. The only way I can see Stipe pulling off the upset is if he gets him out of there within the first 2 rounds. And I think I've even told you this off the air and maybe once or twice when the fight was initially announced. But I think the only way Stipe can win this fight is if he keeps Jones at range and tries to knock him out before Jones gets his timing down. Because as you know, when his timing is superb, in my humble opinion, it is the best in mixed martial arts, bar none. So I see this going one of two ways, but I think one way is more likely than the other, if you will. So
For sure.
I like Jones to get it done. As far as the other stuff, when it comes to what he's going to do after the fight, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Well, we can get to that right now. We can get to that right now.
Okay,
So,
sure.
Let's talk about it. So, since we're both agreeing that John Jones is going to win, let's start with Miocic. Because if Miocic loses this fight, he has accepted Zain nothing less but title fights over the last decade, or just short of a decade. At this point, if he's completely out of the picture, I don't see him coming back to the octagon, especially when there's nobody else. I mean, it's all fresh matchups for Stipe, but there's been nobody who's faced in the UFC, that he's won against in the UFC that's even on the roster anymore. So
right, and he won't. Right, and there's no way he'll move down to light heavyweight or anything remotely close to that.
And I don't see him trying to start from the back of the line. So if Stipe loses, yes, he retires.
Okay.
You agree with me?
I do for one, and for two, I think if he's going to retire, he's going to do it in such a way where he's going out on his own terms. And I think him retiring after this fight will be him doing exactly that. He'll be going out on his own terms, the way he wants to. And the only sting on his legacy was that he didn't beat the consensus greatest fighter in UFC history.
Right.
That's going to be the only knock on him.
I'd say two: a loss to Jones and the loss to Ngannou.
I mean, do you think the Francis loss really looks that bad now? I mean, I think that's a pretty good loss given who Francis is now become.
Okay, fair enough. But then I can't say the Jones loss is bad.
No. It's going to be the whole narrative that he couldn't beat the greatest fighter of all time. I personally don't think it's a bad loss, but I bet you there's going to be thousands of other people who think the opposite way. But that'll probably be the main narrative that'll get thrown around.
That's fair.
I don't believe that though.
No, I don't either. Let's flip it though. If Stipe Miocic were to somehow win this fight, does he go on to face a Tom Aspinall and Alex Pereira, any of these contenders at heavyweight, or does he still retire, going out essentially on top in the world's most famous arena?
No, he doesn't retire. I think either of those fights are too big for him to pass up for the amount of money that A or B, meaning Aspinall or Pereira, would make off that fight.
Or if you're the UFC and Stipe wins, do you do the rematch between him and Jones?
I think it would piss a lot of people off, but I think based on conclusion and storyline, it would make
based on the way Zain that we book things, I feel like it would have to be a must.
I think so. Yeah. But by the way, if a rematch does happen, the only thing that would be fair would be Jones having to come to Stipe's backyard of Cleveland, Ohio.
I could see that.
It's the only way that this is fair. If you're going to give this fight in Jones' hometown, it's better to return the favor in the rematch. And then if that fight is somewhat interesting and we end up getting a 1-1 tie, you do the trilogy in Vegas in mid to late 2026.
And the heavyweight championship picture just gets more convoluted.
Well, then by that point, if we get to this very hypothetical 0.001% scenario, the interim heavyweight title would mean absolutely nothing. So
yeah, that's true. All right, let's talk about from Jon Jones' standpoint. Let's start with, again, the idea of a Stipe Miocic win. If we are proven wrong and Jon Jones loses this fight, you don't, based on what you're saying, I'm saying where I think we're agreeing, there's no way he ends his career on a loss, right?
No, of course not. He's Jon Jones. Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
There's no way.
No way. Absolutely no way.
Okay. So now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Everyone is assuming that John Jones wins this fight. And then we have Tom Aspinall there. But as he has made mention of in a couple of interviews, one of which you and Pat had a little stream about late last week, talking about that he feels like it is unlikely that he will face Tom Aspinall. And John Jones has teased previously, we've talked about this on this show weeks ago, Zan, that he has teased that this fight could be his last. And I said, if we're just talking story stake, greatest of all time, won championships in 2 weight classes, finally getting to fight at MSG, it feels like it writes itself as a perfect Hollywood style storybook ending. But because of what happened last year, now you have Tom Aspinall in the picture. And now John Jones has also teased if he does come back for another fight, and this is the one I said might be worth more, Zan, where we talked about, Jones versus Miocic being the moneyest fight right now, a fight between John Jones and Alex Pereira. So what happens here, Zan? Because you know me, I've been of the advocate, especially given these recent comments, that I think we're going to have a double retirement at MSG and both Jones and Stipe lay their gloves down. I would feel bad for Aspinall because he wouldn't get to, it would be like Whitaker all those years ago where he doesn't get to fight GSP. He's just elevated into the undisputed championship role. I just feel like that's how it is, especially given all the recent comments.
Well, wait, can you clarify what your original question was, just so I can understand?
Yes. Basically, do you think John Jones will lay the gloves down with a win?
I'm not ruling it out, but I would say no. I think he's gonna do his GOAT celebration that he usually does into the microphone. Then I'm just gonna try to quote it word for word as to what he would say. Be like, "Hey, New York, so was that impressive enough for you?" And he's gonna wait, and he's gonna milk it, and then Joe Rogan's gonna be, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Are one of these two guys gonna show me the money or what?" And he's gonna walk away. It's gonna be very similar to the Brock Lesnar Bud Light incident.
Do you think, okay, so if you say he's going on, what do you think is more likely to be made? John Jones versus Tom Aspinall to unify the heavyweight championship? Or if Alex Pereira maintains his light heavyweight title, maintains with another defense or so, John Jones, Alex Pereira, champion versus champion, probably for Jones's heavyweight title?
I don't think you're gonna like my answer, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Okay.
I think the fight the UFC goes with, unfortunately, and it might burn an entire country to the ground. But
Pereira?
I think that Jones versus Pereira is the fight that they more than likely make next because they because they love Alex Pereira.
I mean, I'm not gonna burn anything. My coworkers over in England are probably gonna riot hearing your answer, but that's that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think with
Now,
Zen,
Go ahead. Let me throw a little curveball into the scenario here, because we talked about it last episode with Alex Pereira making all these short notice title defenses. If he were to lose the light heavyweight championship in his next fight, hypothetically speaking, then does it become Jones Aspinall? Or has Alex Pereira got so much aura at this point that even if he didn't have the light heavyweight title anymore, it's still a good fight?
Oh no, I think they would both have to be champion for the fight to make sense.
So basically, it's going to depend upon if Pereira makes another title defense. Because let's face it, he's going to make another title defense at some point before a Jones fight.
Right. Right. Obviously, assuming it's against Magomedov Ankalaev, but you never know.
You never know. I mean, there's still UFC 310, which we'll talk about in a second here, with whatever's going on with that date. I can't believe we're about to be a few weeks away and we still don't have an answer to what's going on with Belal Muhammad. Well, we know he's out. I'm just saying we don't know what's going on with that date.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows.
All right.
If
So
I don't know, you don't know. So
if you don't know, I don't know. And if we don't know and our colleagues don't know, nobody knows.
then nobody knows.
All right. Well, we do have another fight we got to talk about for 309. That is the co-main event. Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler. This is going to be a fantastic fight. This has also been booked for 5 rounds. This is a rematch from 262. Michael Chandler came seconds away from finishing Oliveira and becoming lightweight champion. And then Oliveira pulled off the unbelievable second round finish. This is going to be Michael Chandler's first fight in 2 years, which took place also at the world's most famous arena when he was finished by Dustin Poirier. He has spent this entire time chasing a man who is now under trial in Ireland for sexual crimes. So I guess the chances, Zan, I'm not making light of the situation, the trial going on, but the chances that we get Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor are going in my favor, and that they are becoming slimmer and nunner by the day.
Yeah, I mean, this fight feels like an NFL wildcard playoff scenario written all over it, where it's like, okay, if Charles Oliveira beats Michael Chandler, then it's almost like plugging in that Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler has been officially eliminated. So, so if you want to hold on to that 0.00012, whatever it's going to be, percent chance that the fight's going to happen, you got to hope and pray that Michael Chandler somehow exacts revenge against Charles Oliveira.
I mean, Dan, I left my 0.0012 whatever in the trash a long time ago.
I'm just saying for anybody who's still holding on to it, this is your last chance.
Fair enough. And the thing is, Dana White has come out before, Zan, and said, when this fight was first booked, and said, oh no, there's still a chance, even after this fight, we could do Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler anyway. But realistically, if Michael Chandler loses this fight, is Conor McGregor going to want to fight a guy who's coming off of 2 straight losses?
I don't know. Knowing Conor, I think he'll do anything at this point.
I don't, but Zan, I don't know if Conor McGregor is ever coming back. I'm of the opinion at this point, no. And I was saying that before this trial even started.
I don't know. It's very interesting. And as I've said to you for months, between the last 8 and 10 months, I think there's a bigger story there that no one will ever know until many years down the line. As to
well, part of that I think is the contractual issues.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But this fight, Zan, I mean, we talked about being must. I'm going to reiterate some comments I said weeks ago, Zan, that this fight was must win. But now, given what's going on with Conor, given the fact that this fight's been booked, now not only is it must win, and I actually, when did I say? Oh no, I remember saying this when the McGregor Hooker news was teased. So I think at this point, this is not just must win. This is now all or nothing for Michael Chandler. If you win this fight, you don't need to worry. Maybe you get the McGregor money fight. If you don't, then you know what? You're right back into the title picture. Maybe you get a contenders fight in your next fight. But if you lose, no Conor fight, you're miles away from the title. What is there for Chandler?
You're toast.
It's all or nothing.
And by the way, you could say the same argument about Charles Oliveira. He's coming off a loss, and this is a must-win situation. It's a huge fight.
I agree, but I think, Zan, we're in a situation where for Oliveira, if he wins another 2, let's say he loses his fight, I think if he wins another 3 or 4 fights at lightweight, or he moves up to welterweight and gets a couple of wins, then he's back in a title shot. I think it's a longer journey for Michael Chandler off a loss than it is for Charles Oliveira. And
I do too. I just think he would get back in the good graces of a lot of people if he beat Michael Chandler in exciting fashion.
Fair enough, but that's why,
knowing that he was supposed to get the Islam fight a couple years ago and it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but that's why, Zan, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but we were talking about John Jones and Stipe Miocic laying the gloves down. I think Michael Chandler's a candidate as well. If he loses his fight, maybe this is it for him. Or maybe he does like Dustin doing 1 more fight, 2 or more fights, and that's it.
Yeah, that's bold, but I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility either.
But what's there for Michael Chandler if he loses?
I don't think anything personally.
That's my point. I hate saying it because I love Chandler. I feel terrible for him because he's waited all this time, and basically he's going to get nothing in the end. But that's Conor McGregor for you.
Right.
Unfortunately, the UFC, Zan, Conor McGregor is the UFC's Frankenstein's monster. They have created something that they cannot control, and now this is the situation that they're stuck in.
Right.
It's going to be a solid fight. And I'll quote my piece, the MMA News staff piece that's coming out later this week. Unfortunately, Zan, given everything that we said, second verse, same as the first. I'm going Charles Oliveira, second round finish.
Yeah, I could definitely see it going this way. I don't know. There's been a lot of parity in the UFC this year, and a lot of unexpected stuff go down. I'm actually gonna have to disagree with you, and I'm gonna make my only bold pick of the entire main card. I'm picking Michael Chandler to exact his revenge and defeat Charles Oliveira.
Does he get the McGregor fight, or does he get a number one contenders fight in his
I
next
think
fight?
it's more than likely he gets a contenders fight before a Conor fight.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's fair enough.
I actually I like the other side. I think it'll be a great fight. I think it has a chance to be a fight of the night contender, but I just think you can't be posting on Instagram every week all these motivational things and all this stuff about how you
And
believe
then
in
lose.
yourself again and stuff like that and lose 100%.
Fair enough. All right. Zan, it's time for another fight that not a lot of people have been looking forward to. And then plenty of other people have been looking forward to. And that is the night before UFC 309 down in Texas. How about them Cowboy land? It's Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. It is a professional fight. It is going to be 8 rounds. Knockouts are legal. They're going to be fighting with 14-ounce gloves. That's the rules. Them's the rules.
Yeah, that is the rules. And just a quick shout out to my outlet, MMA Knockout. Christy Santiago is going to be on site for us all week covering this circus. So I'm very.
We should have shouted out Pat, who's going to be on site for 309 this weekend.
No, it's true. And shout out to our producer, Pat, who is going to be on site at Madison Square Garden for Combat Sports UK. Hey, it's his first UFC event. It's credentialed media, so hopefully he has an absolute blast. So.
All right, but now you look at this fight. I mean, Zan, this is going to officially be Mike Tyson's first fight in just under 20 years when he was retired in 2005. Not
Did you watch that fight?
No.
No, I figured you didn't.
I didn't, but I remember all the hype around, 2004. Oh, Mike Tyson's coming back. It was his first fight or something. I forget if it was his first fight or his second fight after the Lennox Lewis fight, and then he gets knocked out by I think it was Danny Williams.
Second fight, because he lost to McBride too in that stretch, I think.
Well, that was it. That was the 2005 fight. He lost to McBride.
Yeah.
And then he was corner retirement, and then he actually did retire. Now, Mike Tyson did compete in a Legends exhibition against Roy Jones Jr. 4 years ago. 4 years ago this month.
The fight was okay. It wasn't great. It was one of those COVID hold me over sporting events when nothing else was on. It was also the same night that his opponent, Jake Paul, emerged by face planting Nate Robinson into oblivion.
Yes. New York Knicks slam dunk champ Nate Robinson with Snoop Dogg on commentary, by the way.
Bulls legend too.
with Snoop Dogg on commentary, by the way, which I thought Snoop Dogg was the best part of that Paul Robinson fight.
No, I don't disagree, but I think the biggest loser in that fight was Triller at the time.
Yeah.
Apparently Triller lost a lot of money off of those fights. The Ben Askren fight and the Nate Robinson fight.
Well, I mean, Sam, what did you expect from a show? Because that's what it was, a show. It wasn't even an event where you had a concert in between each and every fight. And now my concern is, are we going to get that here too? That before Paul versus Tyson, we have to sit through a whole 30 to 45-minute concert?
I wouldn't put it past it. You have to remember, Netflix is not a sports company; they're an entertainment brand. So
Are we gonna get Turk Al-Sheikh to award himself a medal again?
hell no, no way. No, we're not. No, we're not getting that. But in all likelihood, I do expect Jerry Jones to be in the absolute front row. I expect him to be in some sort of a throne somewhere in the arena where the king is in his castle, if you will, and it's going to be a spectacle.
Well, you know what? You know what they don't have to worry about so much since it's going to take place at night. They don't have to worry about sun coming into AT&T Stadium.
No, they don't.
Look, I cannot believe still that this fight was actually allowed to be a professional fight and not an exhibition. If you told me this was an exhibition, whatever, okay. But Mike Tyson, who's about give or take 60 years old, taking on Jake Paul, that just, I mean, Zain, I was there for the bleep show that was their press conference.
There's going to be another bleep show tomorrow from the time that this is coming out. They're doing one more final press conference on Wednesday.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm just saying I was there for the bleep show that was at Fanatics Fest in New York.
Right, which, by the way, no disrespect to you because you didn't do anything. That's one of the worst run press conferences I've ever seen.
I salute you, Captain Obvious.
You get.
I told you about everything. All the bleep show that was.
You get 4 questions from the media, and hundreds of media are there. Really? 4 questions. Come on, guys.
And there was no crowd control or whatever. It was awful. All right, my point here. Look,
you might as well have been in a at a rave in a mosh pit that day for how crazy it was.
It felt like I was. All right. Anyways, look, this fight. I mean, look, I get all the videos of Mike Tyson, you know, being in training and showcasing the power and everything. Jake Paul is still younger than him. He still has power that. And I don't know if a 60-year-old Mike Tyson has the chin that 30-year-old Mike Tyson had or 25-year-old Mike Tyson had. So, look, my point being, I am like a lot of people out there. I am like everybody who was there in New York, Zain, in that if Mike Tyson were to knock out Jake Paul, I might be one of the happiest people in the world. I would be doing backflips if that were to happen. But that's an if. This is a fight where I'm hoping I am wrong. Jake Paul, I don't know if he finishes Mike Tyson, but I think that this is a Jake Paul easy decision, unfortunately.
Well, I guess I'll just tease it. I have a column trying to persuade the masses that Mike Tyson can beat Jake Paul, but I'm not going to pick Mike Tyson because I am a rational person. But if you want, it's my column on that. You can go to MMA Knockout later this week and try to persuade yourself into thinking that your 60-year-old man can beat a former YouTuber and Disney star. But I am going to pick Jake Paul simply for the purpose of, guys, let's face it, he's faster, he's younger. Right now, he's all the craze with the persona, the social media following, how he brands himself, just the way he's been able to promote, you know, not just his fights, but the fights within MVP. If you think about it, you know, or for those who follow boxing at a hardcore level, you know, they actually have legitimate prospects in MVP, and all the credit in the world, whether you like Jake Paul or not, has to go to him. So, you know, I think, you know, as much as people want to say, "Oh, this fight's stupid" or whatever, I don't disagree. But you cannot deny over the last 2.5 or so years that Jake Paul has been nothing short of a marketing genius this entire time.
For sure. 100% everything that you said, I agree with, Zain. And but as a boxing match, I mean, Zain, I'm looking forward more to the co-main event of the evening.
I think so too. It's the rematch we waited over 2 years to see, and it's a fight that I think you and I were hotly debating on who we thought won. I'm still sticking with my claim that I think Serrano did enough in the first fight, and I think the second fight between her and Taylor is going to be nothing short of unbelievable. What
Oh,
do
I
you?
think it's going to end up being Zan one of the most. I think they're going to leave such an impression that you're going to see people talking about that fight just as much as the Paul Tyson fight. I think those two are going to have, you know, one of the best fights in boxing this year. But like you, I think that Amanda Serrano did enough in the first fight to get the job done, and she'll prove that again here. I'm going to go with a Serrano decision.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this because there's a huge elephant in the room. How could we not discuss this? The fight is on Netflix for all subscribers. So I guess my follow-up question to you on this would be, I mean, if we ever end up knowing the numbers, do you think this will be a financial success for Netflix? Because I personally think it will be.
I feel like it has to be. I mean, Zan, you're looking at all that Netflix is doing with its expansion. You know, in about a month or so's time, Zan, they're going to be airing a pair of Christmas Day NFL games. A couple weeks after that, they're going to start their Monday night, they're hosting a Monday Night Raw every week on Mondays. I feel like, Zan, they need to get off on a strong note, and they need Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson's card to succeed.
Right, 100%.
All right.
And
Yeah.
and I gotta admit though, as someone who is a streaming buff, I gotta admit that one of the biggest streaming apps in the world being able to host a fight like this is pretty cool for someone who's used Netflix for however long Netflix has been around. So to see this evolution be a history making spectacle for Netflix has to
Mhm.
be pretty cool. So to everybody involved that's involved with the production and the marketing behind this, we really do hope for everybody's sake, everybody who is working the event, that it is that it is a massive success, because if it isn't, I would be wary going into the NFL slate on Christmas Day that maybe, just maybe, you might be a little nervous considering that potentially the first sporting event go around did not go as well. But let's hope they don't end up getting to that point, and let's hope this is a nice precursor to what will hopefully be an historic UFC 309 card. So we'll
Absolutely.
see. I guess if you want an appetizer to the meal, this is what you're getting. So.
Absolutely. And as far as your point about Netflix, and I mean, the only thing I will say about the NFL is it's the NFL. You see what happens, you know, when they put the exclusive stuff with Amazon Prime, with Thursday Night Football, with Peacock, with the one exclusive playoff game. People do go in droves to get their NFL. I would be, if I was the WWE, I would be sweating some bullets if Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson didn't do well.
Oh yeah, right. Because the WWE is a major financial investment on their hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, briefly talk about some other news points before we get out of here. As of the time we're recording this, we do not have any update with UFC 310. If you missed it, Belal Muhammad has withdrawn due to an injury, a very gruesome looking toe, let's say.
Yeah, they're calling it a bone infection in his toe. That was the exact terminology.
Yeah, it looked absolutely gross. So he's out of the fight. At this point, there are talks about who, you know, it looks like Shavkat will remain on the card. That's the latest rumor.
He would
And
like to. That's what he's pushing for.
okay,
So
that's what he is pushing for. Okay, so at this point, the assumption is maybe there will be an opponent, a fill-in opponent that will take on Shavkat Rakhmonov for an interim welterweight championship. The latest name in the hat is Kamaru Usman, and if I'm not mistaken, he was on the desk last week, just a few days ago, and he was calling for it about the potential that he would be willing to fill in. If that happens, it will be the first time, Zand, in just over a year that he's fought. The last time he fought was when he had the short notice fill in at middleweight against Hamzat Chimaev.
yeah, I mean, if this fight were to happen, it's obviously a very interesting fight. The main question, just briefly, that I would have is, is Kamaru Usman's body the same as it was 3 years ago? That's a big 50-50 question mark, which might make it an easy win for Shavkat. But given that Kamaru is the former UFC welterweight champion, he's no slouch either. So that fight might be more interesting than maybe what people could be expecting. But if the fight were to happen, um, it would be nice to see Usman back in the picture. But it would definitely string up some interesting possibilities in 2025 if Usman were to somehow end the undefeated run of Shavkat. But again, Nothing is official regarding the main event. Don't even know if Shavkat is remaining in the card. He's pushing for it, as we just alluded to. But still, if that fight were to be a possibility, that'll be interesting. Then, of course, you get the wild card fight in Tampa the following week with Ian Gary versus Joaquin Buckley, which it definitely stirred things up in the top 5. So
Yeah, so the welterweight division, that's going to be the focus for December to end the year, basically, is what's going on with this welterweight division. Colby
right.
Covington's still on the sideline. Kamaru Usman, like we said. I mean, Zan, you're right. On one hand, Kamaru Usman is the former champion. On the other hand, it's been a while since he's fought at welterweight, and his last couple of fights, he just has not looked good. And now
No, especially in the especially in the trilogy fight against Leon Edwards.
Leon, yeah.
He didn't look that good.
And I get it, Shavkat, for Shavkat, Kamaru would be a big step up in competition. But this wouldn't be like a Kamaru who had a full training camp. This would be a short notice fight.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that one. One person who is going to, we talked about the potential of changing weight classes. One person who is going to a new weight class then is Max Holloway. So Max Holloway, kind of teased this in the aftermath of UFC 308, and he confirmed it in a YouTube video last week while we were off. Max Holloway is going to move up to 155. He does not foresee a return to 145 in the immediate future. He obviously wants a fresh start, which is one of the reasons why he's moving up, and the name value of new opponents.
I mean, good for him. He realizes that he has a couple fights left. Lightweight, there's some fun matchups you can do there. There's some fun rematches you could do there, and there's also some fun rush fights you could do there as well. And I think Holloway realizes that he's probably one of the most successful lighter weight fighters in UFC history. Easily in that upper echelon is arguably number 1 or number 2, however you want to order the two. One out of 2 of the best fighters to ever come out of Hawaii. So I mean, he's done everything he's ever wanted to do in the sport, and now it's just fun fights for him from here on out. So good for him. As long as he can maintain himself and take care of his body, I have no concerns. Would I wanted to see him retire after Ilya? Sure, but I think he realizes that he probably still has a few more left in him, and given that he's still in his early 30s, he probably feels like, okay, if I could go till I'm 36 or 37 and call it a career, then I'll have done my due diligence. So,
Absolutely. I think he's still, Zan, he was putting up a good fight against Celia. I think he still has plenty left in the tank. And with net matchups, you could do a trilogy fight with him and Poirier. You could do the rematch between him and Gaethje. If Michael Chandler really does not want to retire with a loss to Charles Oliveira, maybe Chandler can be Holloway's first opponent at lightweight.
Well, yeah, and maybe that's a good bounce back potential win for Holloway if they were to fight. So who knows? And then also, I know we alluded to it without saying his name, but there is the outlier of the guy who's currently in the middle of a trial. That rematch is still out there. If you're still looking for a Hail Mary desperation attempt, it would still be there, and it would still sell pay-per-views, man. Who wouldn't want to see that fight? I'd want to see that.
12 or so years since their first fight.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that.
With potentially Max Holloway being in the red corner this time instead of the blue corner, though, which would be a little weird
if Conor McGregor allows it.
Yeah.
All right. Going back to this past weekend, UFC Vegas 100 co-main event. Yes, we're going to start with the co-main event because Reiner de Ridder, the former one champion, looked great in his bout with Gerald Meerschaert.
Not just the former one champion, the former 1-2 division champion.
2 division champion, yes. Gets the win, gets the submission, 3rd round submission win in his UFC debut. But the story was not about his debut. I think, Zan, at this point, the story was about his comments at the post-fight press conference afterwards, where he was asked about his time with one championship. And he basically flat out said, nobody go there. And said he encouraged all fighters, UFC, Bellator, PFL, anybody who's a free agent, to not sign with one championship, which is a pretty bold thing to say. But
yeah, that's definitely bold. And it's even worse. I don't remember who the Twitter user was, so I apologize for not saying who you are. But some very smart Twitter user went on One Championship's website and apparently on their MMA side, there's only been 4 confirmed fights announced for their upcoming shows. So
I mean, Sam, we kind of talked about that over this past year or two. Obviously there's the Prime Video deal here in the US, but I mean, they've become more of a kickboxing and Muay Thai promotion. And it's a shame that Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, he hadn't fought after that third fight with Adriano Moraes before he retired.
right.
So there's questions at this point, Zan, if, one championship is even going to be a promotion, let alone an MMA promotion within the next year or two.
I don't know, but it definitely doesn't seem that way, especially since they canceled. Well, no, they postponed their event in Atlanta with really no warning at all, and said they had to move it to Bangkok because of what was it? I think it was like a partner obligations that they had or something like that. It was something very weird. So obviously, with all those things intertwined, and with him saying that from a fighter perspective, I think he made his stance very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And this is no disrespect to them, and I know you know this too, and I know we actually have some of their willing as well, thanks to some people that you and I both know. But I personally don't think the product is as exciting as they make it out to be. Like the star potential is there. They have like a lot of really good fighters. It was just the way they branded themselves to me was just not how I normally am used to looking at things. So that was probably another reason why he wanted to get out, was because he realized, okay, if I stay here, I'm just going to clean out the division and fight guys that no one is going to know from a global perspective.
Right. The over-the-topness, the lack of star power. I mean, people like to make fun of the PFL for both of those things. I think one championship is in a worse state than that. And
I agree. I mean,
and Zan, given that, they were stretching, they made all those expansions. They were really pushing for things in 2018 and 2019. And then the pandemic happened and they just weren't able to work around it.
right. And to me, I think they botched no disrespect to Demetrius Johnson, but I think they botched that whole thing. I think he could have been a bigger star there than what he ended up becoming. And it's not his fault. It's the machine that they put in front of him was simply the wrong machine. The machine didn't work right. So
Absolutely. So it's a shame what one's becoming. One last thing here. Carlos Pretes, I mean, jeez. The way that he knocked out Neil Magny. Zan, look, and I'm saying this not just because of what Carlos Pretes did, but also you consider what Caio Bravo has done earlier this year, and you consider that coming up as part of the main card for UFC 309, you have Mauricio Rufy, the fighting nerds, and at this point, in my opinion, they are the fighting team of the year.
yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. And not to mention the fact that this is now four knockout wins for Carlos Paredes since bursting onto the UFC scene. I mean, he's quickly become one of the most exciting fighters in that division. And when you got guys like John Jones wanting to take a picture with his team, I mean, that just goes to show you how much star power that team potentially has in the years to come. It's very impressive.
Zan, if the UFC and the team play their cards right, there's a chance within the next 2 to 3 years we could see multiple members of the Fighting Nerds becoming UFC champions.
Oh, I don't disagree.
I think they have so much potential. Like, it's unreal. We talk about the American top teams. We talk about the Black Zillions. We talk about that legendary camp down in Phoenix. But the Fighting Nerds are just... they are them. They have done so many spectacular things this year. And the future for them is bright.
Future for them is very bright. When you got Carlos Paredes, breaking down in tears and saying this is the happiest he's ever been after a win, and that, he wants to fight, he wants to fight Jack Della Maddalena later, or he wants to fight Dan Hooker, and he wants to go to Australia and rain on their parades. Like,
Zach, I'm for it. I'm for it. Book Prates versus JDM for UFC 312 in Sydney. I'm cool with that.
I was just going to say that is awesome, ambitious, and someone that I think the UFC realizes that it needs to continue to push. So
absolutely. All right. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network. Follow us on social media again at MMA Outsiders ETB and at ETB Network. Again, if you don't want to watch us see our ugly mugs, go to Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you get your podcast in an audio format. And then, of course, come to our YouTube home if you already are. YouTube.com/ETV Network. Help us get to 900,000 subscribers. Shout out to our friends over at Playback. Make sure now to go back to playback.tv/ETV Network and check out the fight study that Zain and I did. Plenty of other stuff in terms of the NBA content that we're going to be doing. So make sure to check us out. Playback.tv/ETV Network. All right. That's Zain Bando. I'm Tom Albano. Enjoy the fights this weekend, everybody. A star-studded weekend this weekend. A lot of high stakes between the two cards. It's going to be fun to watch.
It'll be fun to watch, that's for sure. Enjoy the fights this weekend, whether that be Friday, Saturday, or both. And before we get out of here, we just want to remind you to be Joe Piper.
Be Joe Piper. Take care, everyone.